The stars in the Sigma 7 sector hung like frozen diamonds against the black canvas of space. Captain Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Earth warship Quiet Thunder, watching the view screen as two massive alien fleets came into view. His ship had traveled 3 weeks through hyperspace to reach this distant corner of the galaxy, all because someone needed to make sure these aliens didn't start killing each other again. The Vryloth Empire and the Kashari Dominion had been fighting over this sector for 2 years. Dozens of colonies destroyed, millions dead, and neither side willing to back down. Finally, the Galactic Council stepped in and forced a ceasefire. Now they needed neutral observers to make sure both sides kept their word. Earth had volunteered, eager to prove humanity deserved a seat at the big table. Dae-hyun knew what his ship looked like to these advanced civilizations. The Quiet Thunder was a brick compared to their sleek vessels. No glowing shields, no elegant curves, just gray metal plates welded together in the most efficient way possible. Human ships always looked like they were built in someone's backyard, cobbled together from spare parts. The other species in the galaxy had 1,000 years of spaceflight experience. Humanity barely had 70. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Vryloth flagship," said Young-ho from the communication station. He was young for his position, barely 25, but he had a gift for languages. He could pick up alien speech patterns faster than anyone Dae-hyun had ever met. "Put it on screen," Dae-hyun ordered. The view screen flickered and showed a Vryloth commander. The aliens looked like walking lizards with scales that shifted between green and gold, and eyes that had 3 eyelids. This one wore armor that seemed to be made of living metal, constantly rippling and adjusting. His name appeared at the bottom of the screen, Commander Talonvex of the Crimson Fang. Talonvex looked at Dae-hyun and started laughing. It was a harsh barking sound that made the translator struggle to keep up. "This is what Earth sends? A cargo hauler? I have supply ships with more weapons than your little box." Behind Dae-hyun, he heard Hana shift in her seat. She was his weapons officer, and she didn't take insults well. Her hand probably itched to show this lizard what the Quiet Thunder could do, but that wasn't why they were here. "We're here to observe, Commander, not to fight," Dae-hyun said calmly. "The Galactic Council appointed us as neutral monitors for the ceasefire." "Neutral because you're too weak to matter," Talonvex shot back. "Stay out of our way, human. If shooting starts, run home to your little planet." The screen went dark. Sung-min, the tactical officer, shook his head. He was older than most of the crew, with gray streaking through his black hair. He'd served in 3 different Earth conflicts before joining the space fleet. "That went well," he muttered. "We've had worse welcomes," Dae-hyun replied. He remembered their first contact with the Tervalian collective. Those aliens had tried to buy Earth as a nature preserve. At least the Vryloth recognized humans as intelligent, even if they thought humanity was pathetic. A second transmission came through, this time from the Kashari Dominion. Admiral Shrikemal appeared on screen, a creature that looked like someone had crossed a bird with a snake and given it 6 arms. The Kashari were known as master strategists, cold and calculating in everything they did. "Human Captain," Shrikemal said, her voice smooth as silk. "I trust you understand the delicate nature of this situation. Perhaps Earth should have sent something more appropriate for such an important mission. A vessel that could actually enforce the peace should it become necessary." It was an insult wrapped in diplomatic language, but it was still an insult. Dae-hyun gave her a polite smile. "We'll do our job, Admiral. That's all the Council asked of us." "Of course," Shrikemal said, her tone making it clear she thought humanity would be useless. "Do try to stay safe. It would be unfortunate if your primitive vessel suffered an accident out here." She cut the transmission. Bora, the chief engineer, laughed from her station. She was the shortest person on the bridge, but she had a personality twice her size. "Primitive vessel. If they only knew what's sitting in the belly of this ship." "They don't need to know," Dae-hyun said firmly. "And they won't know unless things go very wrong. We're here to keep the peace, not start a war." The crew settled into their routine. Hana monitored the weapon systems of both alien fleets, looking for signs someone was preparing to break the ceasefire. Sung-min tracked ship movements, making sure no one tried to sneak forces into position. Young-ho listened to all the communication channels, catching any hints of planning or conspiracy. Bora kept the ship running smooth, making sure all systems stayed green. 3 days passed quietly. The Vryloth and Kashari fleets glared at each other across empty space, but no one fired a shot. Dae-hyun started to think this mission might actually be boring. That would be fine with him. Boring meant everyone went home alive. On the fourth day, everything changed. "Captain, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors," Sungmin said, his voice tight with tension. "Multiple contacts, emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the sector." "A lot of contacts." Daehyun felt his stomach drop. "How many?" Sungmin's fingers danced over his console, pulling up the data. His face went pale.
67 ships, sir.
"Various sizes, but all armed. They're not Vryloth or Kishari. Configuration matches." He paused, checking his database. "Matches the Kelvarn swarm." Everyone on the bridge went silent. The Kelvarn swarm was bad news. They were pirates, raiders, killers for hire. They'd been hitting outer colonies for months, always disappearing before military forces could respond. They took what they wanted and left nothing but wreckage behind. "What are they doing here?" Hana asked. Young-ho had the answer a moment later. "Captain, we're receiving a broadcast. It's coming from the swarm fleet." He put it on speaker. A harsh, clicking voice filled the bridge. The translator identified it as Vashtera, the swarm's queen commander. "Attention all vessels in Sigma 7. You have gathered your finest warships in one convenient location." "How thoughtful." "The Kelvarn swarm claims this sector and everything in it. Surrender your vessels and perhaps some of you will survive as slaves. Resist and we will take what we want from your wreckage." The transmission ended. Daehyun looked at his crew. Every face showed the same mix of fear and determination. They all knew what was coming. The ceasefire was over. Now they had a real fight on their hands. "Battle stations," Daehyun ordered quietly. "Power up all systems. This is about to get ugly." The Kelvarn swarm fleet moved through space like a plague of locusts. 67 ships of all shapes and sizes, each one bearing the scars of countless battles. Their hulls were patchwork metal, stolen technology bolted onto whatever frame they'd started with. Some were sleek Kishari designs corrupted with crude weapons. Others were Vryloth warships taken as prizes and twisted into something cruel. At the center of the formation was the command carrier, Void Reaper, a massive vessel that looked like someone had taken 3 different ships and welded them together. Queen Commander Vashtera sat on her bridge, all 8 of her legs folded beneath her bulk. The Kelvarn were insectoid creatures, with armored carapaces and compound eyes that saw in spectrums other species couldn't imagine. "Today we feast." Vashtera clicked to her officers. 2 of the galaxy's greatest fleets gathered like prey in a trap they didn't know existed. Their weapons will improve our ships. Their technology will strengthen the swarm, and their crews will learn what it means to serve the Kelvarn. One of her officers, a smaller male named Kreshtel, gestured at a display showing the gathered fleets. "Queen Commander, they have 34 military vessels, all warships. The Vryloth and Keshari may be enemies, but they will unite against us." "Let them unite," Vashtera said. "We still outnumber them 2-1. And they're split, uncertain, still thinking like rivals instead of allies. We'll break them before they can coordinate properly." She paused, her mandibles clicking in what passed for Kelvarn laughter. "Besides, they've brought entertainment. Look at that pathetic human ship hiding in the back." The view screen zoomed in on the quiet thunder. To Kelvarn eyes, it looked even worse than it did to the Vryloth or Kishari. A simple box, no elegance, no threatening features. Just a chunk of metal drifting in space. "Humans," Kreshtel said with disgust. "Barely worth the metal in their ships. Should we even bother taking them?" "We'll destroy them last," Vashtera decided. "Let them watch their betters fall first. Let them know that even the mighty Vryloth and Kishari couldn't save them. Then we'll crack that little box open and see what primitives taste like." The swarm fleet accelerated, weapons charging, ready to turn the Sigma 7 sector into a graveyard. On the bridge of the Crimson Fang, Commander Talon Vex stared at the approaching horde with a mixture of rage and calculation. He'd fought the Kelvarn before, 3 years ago in the outer reaches. They'd ambushed his patrol and killed half his ships before he could escape. He'd sworn to pay them back one day. "All ships, combat formation Delta 7, he broadcast to the Vryloth fleet. "Battle cruisers to the front, destroyers on the flanks. Launch all fighters. Today we show these scavengers what happens when they threaten the Empire." His weapons officer, a young female named Sora Keth, looked nervous. "Commander, we're outnumbered. Even with the Kishari fleet, the odds are against us." "The odds are what we make them," Talon Vex growled. "Load all weapons. Route maximum power to forward shields. And someone contact those Kashari cowards and make sure they're ready to fight. Admiral Shrike-Mal was already preparing her fleet. The Kashari moved with practiced efficiency, each ship sliding into position like pieces on a game board. Her 6 arms worked multiple controls at once, coordinating her forces with the cold precision her species was famous for. "The Kelvarn have made a mistake," she said to her bridge crew. "They see numbers and assume victory. But warfare is about strategy, not just force. We'll target their command structure first. Cut off the head, and the swarm falls apart." Her tactical officer, a male named Voss Wren, highlighted several ships on the display. "The carrier at their center is their command vessel. If we can destroy it, the rest might scatter." "Then that's our priority," Shrike-Mal agreed. She opened a channel to the Vriloth fleet. It hurt her pride to work with her enemies, but survival came before honor. "Commander Talonvex, I'm sending you our targeting data. We focus fire on their command carrier, agreed?" Talonvex's face appeared on her screen, scales dark with battle fury. "Agreed. For once, our goals align, Kashari. Let's kill these parasites together." "What about the human vessel?" Voss Wren asked. Shrike-Mal glanced at the quiet thunder on her display. It was holding position at the rear, not moving to join the formation. Typical human behavior, she thought, cautious to the point of cowardice. Ignore them. They'll stay out of the way or be destroyed. Either way, they're irrelevant. Aboard the quiet thunder, Dae-Hyun listened to the communications between the Vriloth and Kashari fleets. Young-Ho had patched him into all their channels, both public and encrypted. It was a bit rude, but Dae-Hyun wanted to know exactly what everyone was planning. "They're not even trying to include us," Hana said, frustrated. "They're treating us like civilians who wandered into a war zone." "Can you blame them?" Sungmin replied. "Look at our fleet placement. We're behind everyone else, engines barely running, no aggressive posture. We look like we're about to run away." "That's the point," Dae-Hyun said quietly. "Let them think we're scared. Let them think we're useless. Right now, every hostile eye is on those 2 fleets. No one's worried about us." Bora spoke up from engineering. "Captain, the weapon is ready. Power core is at 80% and climbing. Give me the word and I can have us at full charge in 5 minutes." "Not yet," Dae-Hyun said. "We wait." The first exchange of fire lit up the view screen like a deadly fireworks display. The Kelvarn swarm came in hard and fast, their smaller ships darting ahead to draw fire while their heavy cruisers moved into position. The Vriloth and Kashari fleets met them with everything they had. Energy weapons sliced through space, bright lances of destruction that could melt through armor in seconds. Plasma torpedoes traced glowing paths through the dark, exploding in brilliant spheres when they found their targets. Kinetic rounds, accelerated to impossible speeds, punched through shields and hulls like they were paper. The noise was incredible. Even through the vacuum of space, the ship's sensors translated the impacts into sound. Thunder and screaming metal, explosions that seemed to shake reality itself. "Kashari destroyer wind cutter is down," Sungmin reported, his voice tight. "Vriloth battlecruiser Iron Fist has lost primary power. They're drifting." Hana pulled up the tactical display, showing the battle as a complex dance of colored icons. Blue for allies, red for enemies. And there were so many red icons. "Captain, they're getting overwhelmed. The Kelvarn are using suicide tactics, ramming damaged ships into the defensive line to create openings." Dae-Hyun watched a Kashari destroyer explode, its reactor breaching in a flash of white light. 300 crew gone in an instant. He felt each death like a weight on his chest. This wasn't his fight, but these were still living beings dying out there. Another transmission came through. This time it was Talonvex, and his voice had lost all its earlier arrogance. "All vessels, this is Commander Talonvex. Any ship with functional weapons, advance and engage. I repeat, any ship with weapons, engage the enemy now." A second later, Admiral Shrike-Mal's voice joined in. "Human vessel, quiet thunder. If you have any combat capability whatsoever, now would be the time to use it. We need every gun in this fight." Dae-Hyun stood up from his command chair. His crew looked at him, waiting. They all knew what was coming. They'd trained for this, prepared for this, Hoped they'd never have to do this. Hana, remove all safeties from the primary weapon, he said calmly. Bora, reroute all auxiliary power to the main system. Sungmin, calculate firing solution on the enemy command carrier. Young-ho, broadcast on all frequencies. Tell everyone to clear our firing line. Give them 30 seconds. Young-ho's hands shook slightly as he opened the channel. All vessels, this is Earthship Quiet Thunder. Clear the following vectors immediately. Repeat, clear these vectors in the next 30 seconds. Do not ask questions, just move. The confusion in the responses was obvious, but ships started moving, creating a clear path between the Quiet Thunder and the center of the Kelvarn fleet. The Quiet Thunder began to move forward, and for the first time since arriving in Sigma 7, the human warship showed what it really was. The engines that had seemed barely functional roared to life, pushing the vessel forward with surprising speed. The thick armor plating that aliens had mocked as primitive design suddenly looked different, purposeful, like it was built to contain something massive. Deep in the ship's core, Bora watched her displays with sweat on her forehead. The reactor was climbing past safe operating levels, feeding enormous amounts of energy into a single system. Every other function on the ship was secondary now. Life support ran on minimum. Shields were down completely. Every ounce of power the Quiet Thunder could generate was flowing into one weapon. Captain, reactor at 95%, she reported, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Power flow is stable. We're 30 seconds from full charge. On the bridge, Hana's targeting computer had locked onto the Kelvarn command carrier. The Void Reaper sat at the center of the enemy formation, surrounded by its most powerful warships. It was exactly where Queen Commander Vashtera wanted to be, protected by layers of ships and weapons. The safest place in the swarm fleet, or so she thought. Target acquired, Hana confirmed. Distance 42,000 kilometers. Solution is locked. Weapon is ready to fire on your command, Captain. Daehyun gripped the armrests of his command chair. This was the moment he'd hoped would never come. Earth had built ships like the Quiet Thunder as a deterrent, a way to make sure humanity was never helpless again. The weapon his ship carried was designed to end battles in a single shot, to make enemies think twice before attacking human space. But using it meant revealing Earth's greatest secret. It meant showing the galaxy that humanity wasn't weak or primitive. It meant changing everything about how other species viewed his people. There would be no going back after this. He looked at his crew. Young-ho, barely out of school but handling his duties like a veteran. Sungmin, who'd seen too much war on Earth and joined the space fleet hoping for peace. Hana, fierce and loyal, ready to do whatever it took to protect her ship. Bora, a genius engineer who treated the ship like it was alive. These were his people. And out there, hundreds more were dying every second because a pirate queen thought she could take whatever she wanted. All ships, brace for impact, Daehyun said into the comm. This is going to be loud. Commander Talon Vex heard the transmission and wanted to scream. The human ship was moving forward, straight into the enemy fleet. It was suicide. What did they think they could do? Their primitive vessel would be torn apart in seconds. Brave perhaps, but pointless. The humans are making a suicide run, his weapons officer Soraketh said. Should we honor their sacrifice somehow? Talon Vex felt a moment of respect for the small species. At least they were willing to die fighting. Mark their courage in the battle logs. When this is over, we'll make sure Earth knows their crew died bravely. He turned back to the battle, trying to find a way to save his fleet from the Kelvarn onslaught. He didn't have time to watch the humans die. Admiral Shriekmal saw the Quiet Thunder moving and calculated the odds. The human ship would reach the enemy formation in approximately 40 seconds. It would survive perhaps 10 seconds after that before being destroyed. A waste of a ship and crew, but if it distracted the Kelvarn even briefly, it might create an opening her forces could exploit. Cold calculus. That's what war was. Sometimes you sacrificed pieces to win the game. She felt a small pang of regret for the humans, but she pushed it aside. Sentiment was a luxury she couldn't afford right now. All ships, be ready to exploit any opening the human sacrifice creates, she ordered her fleet. On the Void Reaper, Vashtera watched the human ship approaching and felt something like amusement. The little vessel was accelerating straight toward her position. Either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both. Kreshtel, have our forward destroyers eliminate that pest, she ordered. I don't want it cluttering my view of the battle. Yes, Queen Commander, Kreshtel replied, already directing ships to intercept. 3 Kelvarn destroyers broke formation and moved to engage the Quiet Thunder. Their weapons charged, ready to reduce the human ship to scrap. They expected an easy kill, just another primitive vessel that didn't understand how real warfare worked. They never got the chance to fire. Bora, power status, Dahyun asked. 100%, Captain. All systems green. Weapon is fully charged and stable. We're ready. Dahyun took a deep breath. Hana, fire when ready. Hana's finger hovered over the firing control. She'd trained for this moment for 3 years, running simulations hundreds of times. But simulations weren't real. This was real. People would die because of what she was about to do. But more people would die if she didn't. She pressed the button. The magnetic accelerator cannon that formed the spine of the Quiet Thunder had been built in secret at Earth's most secure shipyard. It was based on old military technology, magnetic rails that could accelerate projectiles to enormous speeds. But humanity had refined the concept, pushed it further than anyone thought possible. The projectile was a solid slug of tungsten carbide, alloyed with other metals to withstand the incredible forces of launch. It weighed as much as a small house and was shaped to punch through anything in its path. The magnetic coils that ran the length of the ship's hull activated in sequence, each one adding more speed to the projectile. By the time it left the barrel, the slug was moving at 12% of light speed. There was no dramatic charge-up, no glowing energy sphere building at the ship's bow. The aliens expected weapons to look impressive, to announce themselves with light and power. The Mac was silent death, barely visible on sensors until it was too late. The 3 Kelvarn destroyers that were moving to intercept simply ceased to exist. The projectile passed through them so fast they didn't even register the impact before they were reduced to expanding clouds of vapor. The kinetic energy was so enormous that matter simply couldn't hold together. The slug continued without slowing. It hit the Void Reaper dead center, punching through the command carrier's hull like it wasn't even there. For a fraction of a second, there was just a clean hole through the massive ship. Then physics caught up with reality. The kinetic energy transferred into the carrier's structure, and the entire vessel exploded from the inside out. Metal superheated instantly. Reactors breached, atmosphere ignited. The Void Reaper became a miniature sun for 3 seconds before it disintegrated completely. But the projectile still wasn't done. It continued through 3 heavy cruisers that had been positioned behind the carrier. Each one exploded in turn, their shields and armor meaning nothing against the hypervelocity round. The shockwave from the initial impact radiated outward, a wall of superheated plasma and debris that caught 24 smaller Kelvarn vessels and tore them apart. The entire sequence, from firing to final impact, took less than 5 seconds. When it was over, 40% of the Kelvarn swarm fleet was simply gone. 27 ships, including their command carrier, had been reduced to scattered atoms. The remaining 40 vessels drifted in shocked confusion, their formation shattered, their queen commander dead, their confidence destroyed. The battlefield fell completely silent. Every ship on all sides stopped firing. Weapons went dormant. Engines cut to minimum power. For a long moment, nobody moved, nobody spoke, nobody even seemed to breathe. They all just stared at the human warship that had just changed everything. The space where the Kelvarn fleet had been was now a debris field stretching across thousands of kilometers. Chunks of metal, some still glowing from the heat of their destruction, drifted in lazy spirals. Here and there, small secondary explosions flashed as damaged systems finally gave up. The expanding cloud of vaporized ships caught the light from the distant star, creating an eerie glow like a sunrise painted in steel and fire. The surviving Kelvarn ships floated in stunned disarray. Their formation was gone. Their command structure was gone. Their queen commander and all her senior officers were dead. Some ships had their weapons still charged, but nobody seemed to know what to do with them. A few started turning away, their pilot's survival instincts kicking in. Then more turned. Then all of them. Within 60 seconds of the shot, every remaining Kelvarn vessel was fleeing toward hyperspace jump points. They scattered in different directions, no coordination, no tactics, just blind panic. Ships collided with each other in their rush to escape. 3 vessels tried to jump to hyperspace at the same time and too close together, their drives interfering with each other. They vanished in flashes of twisted space that probably killed everyone aboard. In 2 minutes, the Kelvarn swarm was completely gone from the Sigma-7 sector. 40 ships that had arrived planning conquest were now running for their lives, and they'd never stop running. The swarm's reputation was shattered. Every species in the galaxy would soon know that they'd been broken by a single shot from a single human vessel. On the bridge of the Quiet Thunder, the crew slowly processed what they'd just done. The main view screen showed the aftermath, and nobody could look away from it. Hannah's hands were shaking. She'd pulled the trigger, and nearly 1,000 beings had died. That their deaths had saved thousands more didn't make it feel any better. Weapon status? Dae-hyun asked quietly. Bora checked her readouts, grateful for something concrete to focus on. The barrel is within safe temperature limits, but barely. Magnetic coils need at least 6 hours to cool down before we can fire again. The reactor is cycling back to normal power levels. No damage to the ship's systems. We're green across the board. Good, Dae-hyun said. He felt exhausted, like he'd aged 10 years in 5 seconds. Sungmin status of Allied forces? Sungmin pulled up the tactical display. The Vryloth fleet has 9 ships destroyed or crippled. The Kashari lost 7 vessels. Total casualties estimated at 4,000 crew members across both fleets. He paused. They would have lost everyone if we hadn't fired. Nobody argued with that assessment. The math was simple. The Kelvarn had been winning, and they didn't take prisoners. Young-ho's communication console lit up like a festival. Captain, we're being hailed. By everyone. The Vryloth flagship, the Kashari flagship, and about 15 other ships. They all want to talk to us right now. I bet they do, Dae-hyun muttered. He straightened in his chair, trying to compose himself. This next part was going to be delicate. Put Commander Talonvex through first. The view screen switched to show the Vryloth commander. Talonvex looked like he'd been hit in the head with something heavy. His scales had gone completely pale, almost white, which Dae-hyun's cultural database said indicated deep shock. The commander's 3-lidded eyes were wide open, all lids retracted, staring. Human vessel, Talonvex said slowly. What was that? Dae-hyun had prepared for this question during the 3 weeks of travel to Sigma-7. He'd hoped he'd never have to answer it, but he'd prepared anyway. That was a magnetic accelerator cannon, Commander. A weapon system that every capital ship in the Earth Systems Alliance carries as standard armament. The bridge of the Crimson Fang behind Talonvex erupted in chaos. Dae-hyun could hear multiple Vryloth voices shouting in their own language, the translator struggling to keep up. Someone yelled something about impossible power levels. Someone else was demanding to know if Earth had been hiding an entire fleet of planet-killer weapons. Talonvex held up one clawed hand, and his crew fell silent. The commander seemed to be struggling with his thoughts, trying to reconcile what he'd just witnessed with everything he thought he knew about humanity. Every capital ship, he repeated. Everyone? Yes, Commander. Though I should clarify that the Quiet Thunder is actually one of our lighter frigates. Our battleships carry significantly more powerful versions of this weapon. That information hit Talonvex like a second shot. His scales flickered between pale white and dark gray, colors Dae-hyun's database didn't have meanings for. The Vryloth commander opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, then finally just shook his head. The Galactic Council will hear of this, Talonvex said finally. Earth will answer questions about these weapons. Many questions. We'll be happy to discuss our defensive capabilities with the Council, Dae-hyun replied calmly. We've never hidden the fact that we're well armed. People just never asked the right questions. That was a polite way of saying that the galaxy had assumed humanity was weak and never bothered to investigate properly. Talonvex seemed to understand the implication. His scales darkened further, a color Dae-hyun thought might be shame. Commander, we should focus on rescue operations, Dae-hyun suggested. You have damaged ships with crew who need help. The Quiet Thunder has medical facilities and repair equipment we can offer. Talonvex nodded slowly. Yes, of course. I will send you coordinates for our disabled vessels and... Thank you, Captain. My pride made me blind. You saved my fleet. You saved my life. The Vryloth Empire will remember this debt. The transmission ended. Young-ho immediately put through the next call. Admiral Shrikemal appeared on screen, and she looked considerably more composed than Talonvex had. But Dae-hyun could see the tension in how she held her 6 arms, 2 of them clenched into fists. Captain Dae-hyun, she said, her voice perfectly controlled. That was an impressive demonstration of human military technology. Thank you, Admiral. We prefer diplomatic solutions to conflicts, but we learned long ago to be prepared for situations where diplomacy fails. Clearly. Shrike-Mal's eyes, dark and measuring, studied him through the view screen. I have questions, Captain. Many questions. But like Commander Talonvex, I recognize that we have more immediate concerns. My ships need assistance. I'm transmitting coordinates now. We'll help however we can, Admiral. Shrike-Mal nodded once, a very human gesture she'd probably learned from watching Earth broadcasts. One question I will ask now, however. How many warships does Earth have in active service? Daehyun had expected this too. The Earth Systems Alliance currently maintains 47 capital ships, each with similar weapon systems to the Quiet Thunder. We also have 133 support vessels and approximately 200 smaller patrol craft. The numbers weren't secret. They were publicly available in Earth's military briefings to the Galactic Council, but nobody had paid attention because everyone assumed human ships were weak. Now suddenly, those numbers meant something completely different. I see, Shrike-Mal said quietly. The Kashari Dominion will need to revise our threat assessments regarding humanity. Significantly. We're not a threat to anyone who doesn't threaten us first, Admiral. Earth seeks peaceful cooperation with all species. Of course, Shrike-Mal replied, though her tone suggested she was filing away the information for later strategic planning. We'll discuss this further once the immediate crisis is handled. Kashari out. The screen went dark again. Young-Ho looked at Daehyun with something like awe. Captain, did you just casually terrify two of the galaxy's most powerful military commanders? I answered their questions honestly, Daehyun said. What they do with that information is their choice. Now let's get to work. We have people to rescue. The Quiet Thunder spent the next 8 hours moving between damaged vessels, offering medical aid and emergency repairs. Human crew members worked alongside Vryloth and Kishiri, cutting through bulkheads to reach trapped survivors, stabilizing reactors that were close to breaching, patching hull fractures before atmosphere could vent completely. It was exhausting work, but it felt better than sitting on the bridge thinking about all the death they'd caused. Every person they pulled alive from a wreck was a small redemption. And all the while, Daehyun could feel the weight of what came next pressing down on him. The galaxy had just learned that humanity wasn't weak. That knowledge would spread fast and it would change everything. For better or worse, Earth's position in galactic politics would never be the same again. The news spread through the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Within 6 hours, every major civilization had received reports about what happened at Sigma 7. Within 12 hours, those reports had been analyzed, debated, and panic had set in at more than a few government headquarters. The footage was everywhere. Someone on one of the Vryloth ships had been recording the battle, and they'd captured everything. The Kelvarn fleet approaching like they owned the sector, the desperate defense by the Vryloth and Kashari forces, and then the moment when the Quiet Thunder fired and erased 40% of the swarm fleet in a single shot. The video had been slowed down, analyzed frame by frame. Scientists and military analysts across 100 worlds were trying to understand the physics of what they'd witnessed. Some claimed it was impossible. Others argued that it was exactly the kind of brutal, simple solution that humans would develop. No fancy energy weapons, no exotic technology. Just raw kinetic force applied with devastating precision. On Earth, in the headquarters of the Systems Alliance, Admiral Park Jaemin watched the footage for the 20th time. He was a stocky man in his 60s, with more gray hair than black and eyes that had seen too many battles. He'd been one of the people who'd pushed for the MAC program, who'd argued that humanity needed weapons that could make the galaxy take them seriously. Now he was watching the consequences of that decision. Well, said the woman sitting across from him, we certainly got their attention. Secretary General Liu Chen was Earth's chief diplomatic officer, responsible for maintaining relationships with the dozens of alien civilizations humanity had contact with. She was brilliant, patient, and looked about 20 years younger than her actual age. Right now she looked tired. 23 formal diplomatic protests, she continued, reading from her tablet. 12 demands for immediate inspections of our fleet. 7 requests for technology sharing agreements. And 3 civilizations have quietly asked if we'd be interested in mutual defense treaties. That was fast, Jaemin said. Fear moves quickly, Admiral. Half the galaxy is terrified of us now. The other half is trying to figure out how to use us as protection against the first half. Jamin turned away from the screen showing the battle footage. We built these weapons to defend ourselves, to make sure nobody could push humanity around like we were nothing. I never wanted to use them. Captain Dae-hyun didn't have a choice, Chen pointed out. The Kelvarn were slaughtering those fleets. If he hadn't fired, thousands would have died. Maybe tens of thousands, I know. I've read his report, Jamin sighed. He did everything right. Followed protocols, minimized loss of life, saved Allied forces. He's a hero. But now every species out there is looking at humanity and wondering if we're a threat. Then we need to show them we're not, Chen said firmly. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session in 3 days. Earth has been invited to attend as a full voting member, not an observer. They want answers, and we're going to give them. What kind of answers? Honest ones. We tell them the truth. Humanity has powerful weapons because we've seen what happens when you're not strong enough to defend yourself. We've fought wars on our own planet for thousands of years. We learned hard lessons about strength and weakness, but we also learned about restraint, about using force only when necessary. Jamin nodded slowly. The Council will want restrictions, limits on where we can deploy the MAX ships, limits on production, maybe even demands to disarm. Let them ask, Chen said. We'll negotiate in good faith, but we won't give up our ability to defend ourselves. Not for anyone. In the Sigma-7 sector, Captain Dae-hyun sat in his quarters aboard the Quiet Thunder, writing the hardest letter he'd ever had to compose. It was addressed to the families of the Kelvarn crew members who died when he gave the order to fire. He'd asked Young-ho to find their names to track down their next of kin. It had taken 2 days, but Young-ho had done it. Names and addresses for 873 individuals who'd lost someone in those 5 seconds of violence. Dae-hyun knew most people would think he was crazy. The Kelvarn had been pirates and raiders. They'd killed innocent people across dozens of worlds. They'd come to Sigma-7 planning to murder and enslave. Nobody would blame Dae-hyun for killing them, but he blamed himself. Not for making the wrong choice, but for having to make that choice at all. For being in a position where the only way to save thousands of lives was to take hundreds of others. The door chimed. "Come in," Dae-hyun called. Hana entered, looking uncertain. She'd been quiet since the battle, handling her duties professionally but without her usual energy. Dae-hyun had been worried about her. "Captain, do you have a minute?" she asked. "Always. Sit down." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Hana sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I've been thinking about what we did." "About what I did?" "I killed almost 1,000 people by pressing a button." "You saved 4,000 people by pressing that button," Dae-hyun corrected gently. "Maybe more. If the Kelvarn had won, they wouldn't have stopped at Sigma-7. I know the math, sir. I understand the logic, but it doesn't make it easier." "It's not supposed to be easy," Dae-hyun said. "If it was easy, that would mean something was wrong with us. The fact that it haunts you means you're still human, that you understand the weight of what we did." Hana looked up at him. "Does it get easier?" "With time?" "No," Dae-hyun said honestly. "But you learn to carry it. You remember why you did it, who you saved, what would have happened if you'd hesitated, and you try to be worthy of the sacrifice." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Hana noticed the list of names on Dae-hyun's screen. "Sir, are those—" "The Kelvarn crew? I'm writing to their families." Hana stared at him. "Why, they were the enemy. They were people. They had families, lives, dreams. Yes, they made terrible choices, but their families didn't make those choices. Those families deserve to know what happened. They deserve an explanation, even if they hate me for it." Hana was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "Permission to help, sir? I should share that burden." I pulled the trigger. Dae-hyun felt a wave of pride in his young officer. Permission granted. "Thank you, Lieutenant." 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The council chamber was a massive structure orbiting a neutral star, built by a dozen civilizations working together. It was meant to be a symbol of unity and cooperation. Today, it felt more like a courtroom. Earth's delegation was led by Secretary General Chen, with Admiral Jae-min as her military advisor. They entered the chamber to complete silence. Every species present watched them walk to their seats. Some looks were hostile, others were fearful. A few showed respect or at least cautious interest. The council speaker, a Tervalian named Moshven, called the session to order. His species looked like ambulatory trees, all bark-covered limbs and rustling leaves. "We are here to discuss the recent events at Sigma-7, and the implications for galactic security. The Earth delegation has been granted full membership status and voting rights effective immediately. That caused a stir. Several delegations protested, but Mosh Ven silenced them with a gesture. The decision has been made by the Security Council. Earth has proven it possesses military capability equal to any major power. This grants them full membership under Council Charter. Secretary General Chen stood. Thank you, Speaker. If I may address the Council? You may. Chen activated a holographic display showing technical specifications of the MAC weapon system. She didn't hide anything. Power requirements, projectile composition, effective range, reload time, all of it laid out in clear detail. This is the weapon system carried by Earth's capital ships, she said. As you can see, it's based on magnetic acceleration technology. Nothing exotic, nothing beyond the capability of any advanced civilization to develop. It's simply an application of kinetic force. A Kashari counselor stood. But the power required is enormous. How do humans generate such energy? Advanced fusion reactors, Chen replied. Again, nothing revolutionary. We just prioritized efficiency and output over other considerations. And you have 47 ships with these weapons? Asked a Vreloth representative. We do. We also have detailed plans for an additional 30 vessels to be built over the next 5 years. These plans are not secret. We will share them with any council member who requests them. That caused even more surprise. A Molkeran delegate, one of the species known for their paranoid secrecy, looked scandalized. You would share military technology? Openly? We're not sharing how to build the weapons, Chen clarified. We're sharing our capabilities, our plans, our intentions. Transparency prevents misunderstandings. It prevents the kind of fear that leads to conflict. Earth has no desire to conquer anyone. We simply refuse to be conquered. Over the next 3 hours, Chen answered every question the council asked. She was patient, thorough, and completely honest. When asked about restrictions, she politely but firmly declined any limitations on Earth's military development. We will not deploy our weapons aggressively, she said. We will not threaten peaceful civilizations. But we will not disarm, and we will not accept restrictions that other council members don't accept themselves. Earth asks only for fair treatment and mutual respect. The vote came at the end of the session.